Hello everyone, today we are going to discuss the Python Behave library. So for those of us who are not familiar with it, what is the Behave library and how is it used? The Behave is a Python library that allows us to write behavior-driven development BDD tests for our Python application. BDD is a software development methodology that emphasizes collaboration between developers, QA teams, and stakeholders. With Behave, we can write tests in plain English, which makes them easy to understand and maintain, even for non-technical stakeholders. But what are the disadvantages, you ask? Yes, there are disadvantages. First, we introduce a new library into the system, and every time we introduce a new library, it comes with all that a new library comes. The need to maintain it, the need to update it with security patches, the learning curve, etc., etc. You know the drill. So this is a new library. There is another con to using this library. The con is that once we start writing tests in the Behave BDD methodology, it's different. It's not looking like a normal programming language. It's good to write tests. I think it makes sense to write tests in the Behave. But once we use it, then we have two kinds of tests. Those that are written in the BDD methodology and those that are written in the, let's say, Python.unit test, the unit test library or the PyTest library. So we need to maintain here multiple things. It's especially useful when we want to provide non-technical people with the ability to write tests, because it's written, as we said, in human language. So let's say that we are working on an e-commerce website. So let's take an example. And we want to write tests for the checkout process. So we might write some feature file in the Behave. It's a file.feature in plain English that describes the behavior that we want to test. Of course, the computer would not understand this normal language. We would need to provide another file, another couple of files, the environment file, and then there is the .steps files, which would translate, but it's pretty easy, it's not that hard. If I made it, then you will make it. So you add a couple of more files to assist. So when you write, so basically you have one file, which is the file.feature. Then you add multiple files like this in order to test the application. Then you have a global environment file. And then you have the steps file. The steps files and the environment file are supporting the .feature files. And how does the BDD look like? The BDD, let's take the feature file. It looks like this. Feature checkout process. As a customer, I want to be able to check out and pay for my items so that I can receive my order. Scenario: successful checkout. Given I have added an item to my cart and I have navigated to the checkout page, when I enter shipping and payment information and I click place order button, then I should see a confirmation message. So you see, it's pretty like a normal human language and straightforward. But things are not as rosy as it seems, because we still need, of course, to implement everything behind this. So once we have the feature file written, we use the Behave library to generate the step definitions, which are the code that actually executes the tests. And we would need to fill in the steps. And once we run the tests using Behave in the command line, it will read our feature files, match the steps to the appropriate step definitions, and execute the steps. If a test fails, Behave will provide us with the error message, of course. So what's the difference, you ask? The main difference in Behave is that it allows us to write tests in plain English, but as we said, of course, we would need to support it. So it's good if you need to give the ability to write tests to someone who's not a software developer. It makes it easy to write the test. We tell them what are the abilities, the capabilities, what did the software developer write in the steps file, such that they, who are not software developers, would be able to write such feature files. And let's talk about the downsides and limitations of using the Behave library. So one potential downside is that writing feature files can be time consuming, especially for complex application, because it's not a programming language. It can also be a challenge to come up with a good test scenario that covers all the relevant functionality. And additionally, because Behave is a relatively new library, there might be a few resources available for learning and troubleshooting compared to the established testing frameworks. So the recommendation is to start small and gradually see if it fits us and work our way to more complex tests. It's also important to collaborate with multiple people, with the clients who would need to use this library and the stakeholders, and see that everything matches the expectations.